That's Shadow you hear in the background. Of course, she was being quiet until I just turned this on. Right, baby cat? Um, anyway, today is Sunday, May 17th. That's right, it is. And everybody's a critic. It's okay, baby. And basically, I want to share some thoughts about a new Oracle deck that I've been playing with, new to me. It's called the Dark Mirror, and Alexandra, who is a reader at my shop, had shown it to me a few months ago before everything shut down, and I decided I wanted to play with it a little bit. Normally, I work primarily with tarot cards and also any guidance, intuition or guidance that I get from my guides to share with people. But I've been finding that the Dark Mirror is a really fascinating, really fascinating deck. And the imagery is very dark, and the language is not for under 18. And so if I'm reading something, I pull something from here, I'd like to point out that it may not be appropriate for somebody who's younger. So just kind of keep that in mind. And it's mostly, it's not an issue, but there's a few words in there. So if you don't want somebody to hear a four-letter word, it's possible it may come up in this deck. In fact, that's one of the things that caught my attention. Anyway, it gives a really good insight. It's a good deck to delve in and maybe do shadow work. Sometimes people call it that way. I've been finding very useful to pull one card and meditate on it. The cards are set up so that they deal with the moon phase. They also deal with the stages of grief, and they focus on one of the traditional ways of looking at grief in 5 different stages. And so if you're looking at an issue or you're looking for where you are at this point in your life, it can be really very insightful. Storm's getting ready to brew outside if you're hearing any wind. It can be really insightful to take a look at it and see what comes up. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a look at what this deck says about the state of our world as it is right now. And what I mean by that is, where are people in their focus, and kind of give a little bit of insight into what we might want to take under consideration. Now keep in mind that, except for a couple of friends, this is a pretty dark deck. So this is not going to be happy, joy. We have other ways of looking at that, more or less. But the card I pulled was Perchance to Dream. That's the image. It's really interesting. Really interesting card. And so Perchance to Dream in this deck talks about a new moon phase, and the stage is denial. And it says, if I sleep long enough, when I wake up, the pain will have been gone. And the visual seed is the actual picture. So if you look at this when I'm reading to you, a crowned naked man is reclining, his eyes closed, and his body dissolving in the wind. Very appropriate for a windy day. Another man holds him gently. Behind them, a circle of brass risen by thin, silvery threads. And so the sentence that's associated with this is to die, to sleep, perchance to dream, or. And in the going dark part of this card, which is to take that dive into what it may mean, it says it's the time to surrender, to drown, to dive in headfirst in the cozy, all-enveloping darkness of the blanket. It is a moment of weakness, a desire to close your eyes and surrender just for 1 moment, 1 second, 1 minute. Not like a hero fighting the world, but like a kid just welcoming the darkness outside within. fully. How long will that moment last? A minute? Who can say? We could say just a minute, but it's not true. Disappearing is but an instant, just the time to take a breath twice, and yet it can take ages. Ages we will regret, ages that we will have lost, like stolen by our own surrendering. And yet we close our eyes, we let one sense after the other slow down to nothing. Sight first, then hearing, and smell. Last will be touch. The comforting hand we all deserve to hold us up when we have done enough and we cannot but let it go. So, when we're dealing with perchance to dream, what comes to mind is a lot of this is feeling like a dream to all of us at this point. Is it going to stop? When do we get a chance to let go? Can things get back to normal? But we know, really, there's no such thing as getting back to normal. A lot of things have shifted in our world. And at the same token, perhaps we just need to kind of let ourselves be and not push. And if you need to wallow a little bit without harming yourself or others, it may be the time to do that. Just to kind of take a breath and go, okay, that is it. This is what we're going to do at this moment. I would like to pull a couple of cards to see if there's anything further to share on Perchance to Dream with you and talking about where we are at this point in our world. So the first card is the Four of Cups. And in this particular deck, the top deck, this card talks about luxury. When it comes up for me, a lot of times I think about we're so used to life's little luxuries, we're so used to being comfortable that something that pushes us out of that comfort zone is twice as hard as it might otherwise be. If you've had very little to begin with, it may be easier to manage. Let's see. The Moon card is here. And for me, the Moon card is, it's really a good time to pay attention where you're going, pay attention to the messages you're getting. The Moon can be about psychic matters. It can be about your intuition. But it also can deal with being deceived by illusions. And so it's really important to distinguish between your dreaming and waking life when we look at that Perchance to Dream card. And last but not least, I'm looking at a card called Adjustment. If you look at the focus in this card, once we've moved out of that dream state, really what we need to be thinking about is how focused we can be, focused on what we need to do as individuals, and to be really more balanced. If we're being driven by fear, if we're being driven by anxiety, that does us no good. It does not do the world any good. So having a focus, having a sense of purpose is really, really important at this time. So take your time to dream, but don't get lost in it. Don't go down a path that you can't find your way back. And finally, realize that with the Ace of Wands, things will start new again. And we will be focusing on new projects, new ways of approaching things, new energies. And it's really not just about the pandemic. It's more how we treat each other, how we support each other, and how we love going forward. Fear is not the answer. focusing on love, focusing on the positive is really, really important. That's not to dismiss issues that people have financially or otherwise. I'm not trying to be a Pollyanna here. But when I see this card here, there's new energies, there's new ways of approaching things, and it's really important to realize that this does not have to be the end of the world as a whole. It may be the end of the world as we know it, in the sense of it's time to move into a different state of being. And to realize, this is the Ace of Discs, so we've got new beginnings. There's lots of new beginnings here. So for some people, this may be new homes, new jobs, even new babies. People have talked about there being a baby boom 9 months from now. But it's really important to focus on what new doors are opening rather than the doors that are closing. I wish you well. If you enjoy this, please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you're interested in doing a reading with me individually, reach out to me at beadsandbotanicals@gmail.com. So that's BEADSN, botanicals, BOTANICALS.com. Thank you. Namaste.